Hey everyone. Thanks for listening to another episode of Human Element. Today I'm speaking with Aamir Lakhani, Director of Threat Intelligence and AI at Fortinet. We're recording this live near Black Hat 2025. Aamir, thanks for joining me today. Why don't you start by kind of sharing your background and how you got here?
Excellent. No, thank you. Wonderful being here. So my name is Aamir Lakhani, Director of Threat Intelligence and AI. What that really means, right? And such a long title, but what that really means is what I do as a job is I look at threat actors. I look at like exactly what motivates them. I kind of look at like what are they doing behind the scenes from a money standpoint, from an attack standpoint, from a motivation standpoint. Try and like follow exactly what they're doing, even from laundering money. And I take that information, and on top of that, I look at all the attacks that they're doing, look at the code, look at the logic. And then me and my team develop machine learning models to basically stop that logic of that attack, hopefully eventually create AI systems to basically be able to automate and respond to those attacks. And then lastly, at Fortinet, I always say like the product teams are my customers, because then we share what we learn with the product teams, and they're like, oh, okay, we can use that, or we got to modify this, or like this AI model really won't make sense in this product. So then I'll work with them on how to kind of come up with a better solution.
Okay. Why don't you tell me a bit about your career progression this far?
Okay, so I started off when I was a kid, I was always like into computers, right? Like I remember I think I really got fascinated by hacking by watching the movie Matrix and playing video games. Like I remember playing like Pokemon and looking for like different on my Game Boy Color at that time, right? And looking for hacks and like cheat codes, and that was fascinating. So I was always really into technology and how technology, like I could make technology work better for me. I kind of hated how sometimes vendors or people that created technology kind of dictated how you should use them. I was like, no, I want to use it in a different way. And so that kind of always interested me. But from a career standpoint, I actually started off really heavy in the network space. I was like basically doing routers, switches, even network firewalls at that point. Thought it was really interesting. I got into like wireless IP telephony, data centers, really large data centers. But security was always kind of my passion, and I always kind of gravitated towards that. And then I was like, man, I really want to know more about security. And that's kind of when I just decided I'm gonna put a hold on other stuff, because I wanted to become an expert. I wanted to like not become like a fake security guy. I really wanted to understand like coding and how operating system works, and how Windows like works behind the background, and how chips work and how they process stuff. And so from there, I started doing pen testing, reverse malware engineering, actually even like writing exploits, just seeing like going through the process of what attackers do and understanding that. And I got really heavy into the threat intelligence side from just the standpoint of like going to all the hacker forums, understanding what the attackers were doing. I remember at one point there's a certification called OSCP. And when I was studying for that, I was on Discord, and I was like talking to people all over the world. And I remember talking to people in countries that kind of had low opportunity, but they were highly educated. And these honestly, kids at that point, they were like, 14 to 17. They were real hackers, and they're like, hey, you're learning this, but this is how we actually hack stuff and hack people. And I was like, okay, this is really neat. This is really different than what I'm learning. And I even asked them, like, why are you doing that? And they were telling me, we have no other opportunity, right? This is our only hope of like basically making a better lives for ourselves, like getting out of this country, getting out of this area. So I always found that the human side kind of fascinating as well. But of course, like I always gravitated a little bit towards the technical side, and like just how things work and how we can stop things and the logic behind these attacks.
Awesome. You mentioned, I guess at an early age, your father took you to DEF CON?
Yeah. So I was lucky, I would say, to live a very short time in Vegas right here. Not too long, but I was always like interested. My dad didn't really know much about cybersecurity. He was a businessman, owned restaurants, but he saw that I had a passion for it, and but he had a lot of contacts. So I think somehow he heard about DEF CON, and he told me, I want to take you to that, and let's learn about it, and like let's kind of like light that fire. It was really cool those days, because like I used to not only go to DEF CON, but I used to go to Comdex at that time.
Oh wow!
Really, like I was like if 14, 13-year-old kid running around Comdex and CES, winter to CES, it was really cool time, I think.
That's awesome. Tell me about some of the life events that have shaped your leadership style.
Yeah, there's so many things like that have just happened, I would even say recently. But I think from a life event, one thing that always kind of sticks out to me is when I was first getting into cybersecurity, I noticed that there was kind of this kind of a closed off attitude a lot of times. And I think it's changed, but I think there was this closed off attitude on like, we don't want to share information. We don't want to give information away. And I really didn't know why that was. And I felt like people just weren't really honest. I remember the first time I was cracking wireless like passcodes, right? And I remember the tool at the end just asked you like, hey, what's your IV initialization vector? And I was like, I don't know what that meant. So I was asking people, hey, you told me you break wireless all the time. What does that mean? They're like, oh, just put anything in, or it doesn't matter. And it was really obvious they never had done it live.
We really need it.
It's like, why do we have this this attitude? It's it's funny because back then an IP telephony guy was easy to work with. A router guy was easy to work with, but somehow the top security guys always thought they were the best security guys in the world. And they had a little bit of attitude, and that wasn't everyone, obviously, but I did make it a point at that point to say, you know what, whatever I do, whatever I learn, I want to actually teach other people. And I felt like I just learned so much doing that, right? I mean, even now, I actually teach students. I actually work with a program in Dallas where we teach veterans understanding cybersecurity through multiple programs like Security Plus, CEH, other programs, and then we do custom things like PowerShell and some other Linux programs. But even from those people that really haven't done security after a couple of weeks in that program, they're asking me questions that I have to think about, and I think it just opens you up a lot more. So I would say the thing that really kind of shaped me is understanding how important education is and how important it is to build a community and have that community thrive.
That's great. That's critical. Tell us about a mistake that you've made that has progressed your career.
So I feel like I've just make mistakes every single day. But the one thing that always kind of sticks out to me, and this was basically when I was in my routing days. I was actually upgrading a firewall. It was a Cisco ASA, I believe, at that point, and it was for a very large company that did a lot of financial trading. And I remember they wanted to do an upgrade, and I can't remember, but they asked the company I was working for how much would it cost, and it was some ridiculous amount because it was after hours. It was supposed to be at 4 a.m. at night. And they're like, well, how long should it take him to do that? They're like, oh, 10 or 15 minutes. It's really simple. So they're like, you know what? Let's just do it at lunch. And yeah, and as you can probably guess, yeah, exactly. So I remember 2 hours later when I still can't get the system up and running, I probably lost a good 15 pounds with sweat because I'm just sweating, and I really had no idea what was wrong. All of a sudden I hear just someone yell, hey, it's working, everything's working. I'm like, what? I go, check it again. And they're like, it's working. I go, check it one more time, it's working. I go, all right, I'm out of here, right? And you want to sign anything? I go, they'll send you something, right? But I did learn a really important lesson at that time is always make sure if you're working with a client in that situation, you can always get them back to the point to where you started from. Don't leave them in a worse situation, right? Okay. There's things I should have done better, such as review the configs, back up the configs, get kind of have my disaster recovery plan. Yep. Never thought anything of it because it was just so
just a quick update.
Yeah,
wasn't going to be a deal.
Yeah. Exactly, and it did turn out later on. I found out that was a bug in the software. Basically, the bug made NAT stop working, but it didn't really give you any information around that, and I found that out a little later on.
Yeah, I have a lot of networking background too. You're reminding me of the time I routed the entire internet down to T1. Tell me about non-technical skills and how they've impacted your career.
From a non-technical skill, I think this thing that kind of has helped me a lot is just understanding to be patient and really kind of it's easy to especially when you're in a technical environment, when you're in environments where there's a lot of demand, right, from customers, from your employer, from we kind of lose track of what's important in life, I think, a lot of times. And I think it's important to just understand that, hey, the people you're working with, they're not trying to fail, right? Even if you sometimes get frustrated at them, you just kind of take a step back. I think that's important in every way. Actually, just recently when I was I normally never check in a bag, and I checked in a bag this time at the airport when I was coming from Dallas to Vegas, and I got to the counter, and I'm telling her, hey, I'm going to Vegas, and then she's like, what? And she's just kind of making mistakes, and I could have easily gotten frustrated. I was like, you know what? This is probably just a moment in life where I just need to slow down, enjoy life, take a breath. There's no reason for me to get frustrated, and I was there plenty of time, and I feel like if I can catch myself in those moments, that's important. I look for those moments where I can catch myself just enjoying life, not making things a big deal, because at the end of the day, especially after my first role, make sure you don't leave anyone in a bad place, right? Yeah. It's always normally okay.
Did your bag make it?
Yeah, I did.
There you go. Is there one individual who had a significant impact on your career?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say my dad. That's easy. So my dad was an immigrant from Pakistan. He came here, and I remember like for a number of years, like the only days off he had was like basically Christmas, Thanksgiving, and Easter. That's the days the restaurant was closed.
Yeah.
And he always used to tell me like to be successful. He was a very successful man, and like I said, had multiple restaurants, fast food restaurants, but he definitely worked hard. And he always told me to be successful, you have to work hard. There's no way around that, right?
Yep.
You just have to decide you want to work hard with your brain or on your feet, or like you decide which path you want to go if you want to be successful. And that kind of stuck with me. Is there's no shortcut. You got to put in the time. You got to put in the effort, and then you kind of go from there.
Let's map that to you. What's your definition of success?
My definition of success is really, it sounds a little corny, but like how people around you are successful, and not only that, a little more than that is like what impact do they have on other people. I have so many people, sometimes they say, oh, thank you for helping me, or thank you for teaching this class, like what's going to happen. And sometimes you can just tell this person is going to be amazing, right, in their career, and they're going to do a lot and probably going to exceed you. And I always tell them like, hey, like I tell them, I go, I really believe that, but like take that knowledge and give it to someone else. And I feel like that's my idea of success, is not only your impact on other people, but their impact. It's like a multiplier.
So what's the most valuable lesson you've learned from a security incident or operational failure?
I will answer this a little differently than the first one, than the firewall failing. And just because this is top of mind, is I was dealing with a client that had a data breach, and this was very, very recent. And how this data breach occurred is basically they had exposed servers on the internet, right? And an attacker got in. Once the attacker got in, their SOC actually saw that, and they saw a whole bunch of alerts. And instead of dealing with it, they just kind of muted alerts and not dealt with alerts. And I know this sounds funny, and like, why would you do that, right? But at that point, the attacker like felt like they were not detected, so they started moving laterally throughout the system, doing more and more attacks. And the SOC actually had like multiple opportunities to see the attack, and they pretty much ignored it. And of course, that sounds like, okay, well, that's obviously a problem. Now, this company, I will tell you, is a very mature organization, a global organization, deals with a lot of government and defense contracts there, and they spend a lot of money on cybersecurity, on their people, and on their, on the software, on the products. Yeah. And it started making me think it's not just about like what you have and how much you invest in it. It's just that we're overwhelmed so much with the information. Like, and attackers know this, right? They're taking advantage of that. They're taking advantage of our fatigue, all the other things we have going on in life, and like I said, if I actually named this company, you'd be like, what? They must be one of the best companies in cybersecurity, right? And they probably are in most cases, but in this case, they weren't. And it just shows you that anyone can have a bad day, and anyone can fall for a cybersecurity attack. And at the same time, I truly believe, and like I said, this is very, very recent, but I truly believe one of the ways we can combat that and mitigate some of those risks is AI and automation.
All right, nice.
It kind of made me think like, okay, when I'm working with AI and automation, may actually have something to it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that story kind of reminds me of the concept of second stories, the idea that, there's the story looking at it from the outside for the first time, but then there's, after like an incident analysis or a review, you realize, all right, maybe they didn't have information that we have now, or they had different information that we're not considering that led them to believe that I don't need to worry about that right now.
Exactly.
And, what did the person who made the decision know at the time is really the only way to kind of contextualize, was that the right decision?
Exactly.
But it's easy to sit here in comfy chairs talking about it some point later, and say, why did you mute that? But maybe it's...
Yeah, I mean, and there were definitely reasons behind it. It wasn't like, oh, hey, we see an attack, let's mute it, and like close our eyes, right? Yeah. There was actually reasons behind that as well.
Yeah, I mean, in this space, we have so many alerts, we have so many events. It would not shock me. It would shock me if the adversaries were not looking for ways to get deprioritized in the list of things that the SOC's going to worry about. So that might be an interesting puzzle for AI.
Yes.
What's the most rewarding aspect of your job?
So a couple of things, and it changes depending on like what day and what we're working on and stuff. Like, like sometimes it's just getting a system up and running, like, hey, you've built something really complicated and it works. Yep. Sometimes it's looking at my colleagues and my team and seeing their success, as I mentioned before. Mm-hmm. Other times it's just like taking a step back and like saying, okay, I actually have time to do other things now with my family, and not think about work. Like that it sounds weird. The more like saying most rewarding part of my job is not working sometimes, but sometimes that is because I felt like I've done what I needed to do.
Kind of lets you reorganize your thoughts. And
Exactly.
start you another day. So father clearly had a big impact in your life. Are there things? Do you have kids?
I do, yes.
All right. Are there things you're doing with them to kind of try to pay that forward?
So I kind of joke around sometimes, and I say I don't want my kid to go into like cybersecurity or IT. And I joke, and my wife's like, well, like why? Like they should do what you're doing. And I was like, well, I go, sometimes people just getting upset, so I want to sue everyone. So it would be great if he would became a lawyer. And then my wife just shakes her head. But no, I think so my son just turned 3, so he's still
Okay. You got some time to go.
So he's still figuring things out. But at the same time, I think it's important to just figure out like at this point I'm trying having him. I want to get him exposed to everything to see what he likes. I don't want him to be afraid of anything. I don't want him to be hesitant about anything. But also understand, especially when he grows up a little older, no matter what that decision is, I'll support him. In some ways, I joke around with AI, kind of like automating some of the more complex things. Some of the best jobs, maybe the trades, like electrician and plumber, and like
Absolutely.
we're in Vegas. Everyone's always going to need HVAC systems.
Yep. It's going to be a long time before ChatGPT can fix your HVAC.
Right.
How has your approach to building trust within your team evolved?
That's a good question because when I first started off, I was an individual contributor, and I really enjoyed that, and just kind of by force, kind of by accident, I kind of became a team lead, a manager,
Yep.
and I fought it. I fought it like every step of the way, and I really felt like I wasn't a good manager at first because it was still more about me as an individual figuring out like, hey, what do I need to do to climb that ladder and whatever that may represent, right? Yep. Sometimes, hopefully not, but sometimes I'm sure it could have been ego. Sometimes it could have been like accomplishment. Sometimes it could have been just getting the job done because I felt like I didn't want to deal with anyone else, like teaching them or going through the process with that. But I did. So I also have a very, very good manager, a really good friend of mine. He's I would say he's more of a friend, one of my best friends than my manager. But kind of gave me some good mentorship and like kind of taught me how to stay back, stay on the bottom of the ladder, and like kind of be a cheerleader a little bit for your team, and that really opened up things. I would say for me, I was always kind of afraid that I would lose some of my technical skills going that route, but it's actually given me time to actually work on even more complex things, right? So instead of like kind of dealing with the low-hanging fruit, now I'm just getting called into the very complex things. Now, although it just happens, I'm getting called in all the time just because it's just
that's a lot of complex things.
A lot of complex things.
Yeah.
But also seeing like the team progress and kind of being able to take over and learn and just kind of evolve in their own careers. That's pretty important.
How do you balance the technical and the leadership in your day-to-day?
It's difficult. It definitely is difficult, and I'm gonna be honest. I definitely lose sight of it a lot of days. But there's a couple of things that I like to do. I like to, at the end of the day, before I go to sleep, I wouldn't say I call it meditating, but I kind of just think about my day, even if it's like just sitting in bed, right? And I go, okay, I'm gonna like watch YouTube shorts, but let me just think about my day and what did I do, and I try and think about how did I treat people, how did I work, how did I, what do I need to do, and then I also plan on in my head like what do I need to do to be successful tomorrow, right? From a technical and from a leadership standpoint, and I kind of think about that. There are things that I have to do just to put in time. For example, I probably wake up like around 4 a.m. every Sunday, and I just go through like almost every blog that's out there, like cybersecurity blog, at least the ones I follow, all the big ones that are out there. And, I start listening to a lot of the podcasts for the week, or I kind of like pick out episodes that work. So I kind of use my time for that. But then at the same time, I also am making a note of what I need to do from a non-technical standpoint, right? And so, like I said, sometimes it's just taking that time and also doing labs. Being hands-on, don't being afraid to like get your hands dirty. I think a lot of people, especially when they do get into management, kind of start losing that. And it's easy because like when you're doing a cybersecurity lab or you're like testing like a vulnerability that came out, you just read about like on a blog or something. Yep. It's easy to just read about it and not really understand it. Most people probably are not like creating that VM and creating that vulnerability in the VM to test it, right? And I was like, no, I need to do that. So it's just having the patience within yourself and understanding that this is the right step to take.
How does that time balance out? How much time would you say you spend on the technical versus the leadership?
Yeah, it's probably still about maybe 65 to 70% technical.
Yeah.
Okay. And and 30% leadership. Now that has changed, right? As my team has kind of understand what I wanted to do and like kind of what I require from them, and of course they've evolved and learned a lot of things. I would say when I first started off and I kind of understood what I needed to do and I kind of got into my zone, right?
Yep.
It was probably almost opposite. It was probably like 70% leadership, 30% technical. But I knew I always had a plan to balance that out and change that. And my goal is to like almost hopefully get 50-50. So I'm still working on it.
So you mentioned kind of collecting your thoughts in bed before you go to sleep. Any other routines that you rely on?
Mostly, I think my son, who's 3 years old, just calms me down a lot of times. Just I tell my wife just record everything because he just says some of the funniest things sometimes. In fact, the other day I just was talking to him randomly and I said, "Hey, what does Daddy always say?" And he's like, "I love you." And I said, "What does Mommy say?" And he said this in Urdu, my wife's language. He said, "Insan ka bacha ban." And I was like, what that really means is like be. A direct translation is be a human kid, right? And so my wife sometimes gets like upset at it when he's running around or not going to sleep or just like getting up in bed and like just running around and stuff. So she says that as a joke sometimes, and I thought it was just so funny because the way he said it and stuff, and those little things kind of I would say repurpose me, rebalance me, refocus me.
Kind of a nice reset.
Yeah.
Faith in humanity again.
Yes, exactly.
So if you find yourself feeling overwhelmed, off track, how do you rebalance? How do you reconnect?
I do sometimes feel like I get off balance. Like I said, I think what helps me is not only taking the steps back, but also I have a good set of colleagues and friends that I'm very close to, and we talk. Like we definitely talk and kind of sometimes just vent and rant and just kind of tell what things are bothering us, and it does help us to reset. So I think kind of not holding things in, which is hard to do, right? Sometimes, especially when you need to sometimes vent about very technical things and you want someone to understand that, right? You can't really vent to everyone about that, and sometimes it's leadership skills. So as I said, my manager, mostly a friend. I could do that with him, and I have a lot of other colleagues and mentors over the years that I keep very close touch with.
So given that we're in a rapidly evolving space, how do you stay ahead of the emerging threats while keeping up with your day-to-day duties?
Yeah, so the volume and velocity of attacks these days is just unbelievable and insane, and it is difficult to stay in touch or stay on top of every threat. Now, granted, there are a lot of threats that kind of use the same techniques, same families, same logic behind them. But what I try and do, and as I said earlier, is what does help me is I try and look at what's behind the attack and what is the logic and the purpose and the motivation of those attacks from a cyber standpoint.
Yeah.
And that really helps me, right? That really helps me kind of figuring out where I'm going to group things. So I'm not necessarily looking for individual attacks. I'm looking for, is there a type of attack? Is the motivation, financial reward or hacktivism or peer pressure, right, from the attacker? And, then what techniques are they using? Are they just writing malware? Are they getting like, are they script kiddies? Are they, modifying like old malware with code, with AI or something? Or are they creating their own, right? And so I kind of look for these macro buckets to stay on top of, I would say.
Is there something you do as a leader that you wish other leaders did more?
I hadn't thought about that in a while, but I would say not necessarily that what I wish I would do as a leader, but I think as leaders, especially in cybersecurity, especially with people that have a technical background, I think we need to make it easier to have like a sub community and kind of learn from each other and talk to each other, and especially people outside our circle, right? So you get more views, and we need to do a better job at that. I think that will just increase everyone going to cybersecurity and the people you're leading and the people hopefully that are evolving under you and your organization.
How do you approach building those communities?
So conferences, that's a really good approach. I used to be very, very shy, and as you can tell, like I grew up with a really bad stuttering issue, and so I never used to talk to people, and I always just felt like when I was growing up, just a little wall. Like hey, I can't introduce myself to someone, and my dad actually gave me good advice. He's just fake it. He's like, don't worry how you feel, just fake it. And so now when I see a good talk, when I see a leader that I want to talk to, I just go up to them, and I'm sure I come off very awkward and them weird, but I just will come up and say, hey, I liked your talk. I've been following you. I know everything about you, where you eat, where you sleep. Just joking.
Here's a dossier.
Yeah. And I just talk to them. And I wouldn't say anyone's ever been rude to me. Most people are really happy, just want to understand. I think a lot of people in this industry probably feel the same way. And some people probably just don't have time, or they're in the middle of things, and that's okay. Don't take that personally either.
Yeah.
But it took a while to get to that point.
I think it's safe to say that in this space, you're definitely not alone feeling that way, but it's definitely good to get out there.
Yeah.
So yeah, what are your favorite conferences?
Well, DEF CON definitely has to be up there, mostly because it's always a social event, meeting all my old friends that I haven't seen in a while. It's funny, sometimes I feel like I don't even have to go to any of the talks or villages and just hang out and see all my friends. So I love DEF CON. I do enjoy some smaller conferences, such as SaintCon. I think that's always pretty cool because it's very focused. Like usually the speakers are very, very dynamic, just a lot of fun. GurCon is also another conference that I enjoy going to. And I also just really enjoy going to like a lot of B-sides. I just feel like I meet a lot of people, different types of people, some extremely, extremely technical people, some people that have been in leadership for a long time that I can learn from, and also understanding where some of the newbies are coming in and what they're looking at and some of what their concerns are. So I feel like it gives me a good rounded view of the cybersecurity community.
All right. How about, you got any favorite speakers?
Yes, absolutely. That's kind of what motivated me, to be honest, to speak a little bit, because I was watching some of my favorite speakers. I don't think I'll be ever good as them, but I would say definitely Jason E. Street. I'm sure a lot of listeners kind of know about Jason, and David Kennedy, founder of Trusted Sec. Yep. And I always say when I see those two speakers and a few others, I normally don't even look at what they're speaking about. I just like see the speakers. I go, I know that's going to be good. I'm just going to be out there.
How do you approach tough decisions?
Usually cry a lot and run away, close my ears. No.
There are days.
Yeah, there's definitely days. It can be difficult, but like I said, I try to remain calm. I try and like take it one step at a time, right? I usually, if it's a tough decision, it usually means in a lot of cases for me, it's a complicated decision as well, and I'm not trying to like solve it. I'm just trying to take one step at a time, right? I just hey, what's the first thing that I just need to really work on? Then what's the second thing? Then what's the third thing? So I try and do that. Sometimes that doesn't work. Sometimes it is just a really complicated decision, and at that point, I just try and take a step back. I will use things like ChatGPT and say, hey, what do you think about this? It kind of becomes my counselor sometimes. Of course, use family, use friends. And use my colleagues to like sometimes bounce decisions off of. But yeah, I think like all people, we kind of struggle with tough decisions, but we get through them eventually.
So you said you teach?
Yes, I really enjoy teaching, actually.
That's awesome. What kind of advice do you give your students about how to break in and get in the field?
Yeah, I tell them like a lot of times it's okay. You're gonna learn. You're gonna be frustrated, and that's what even happens. Like so these days, everyone wants to like learn pen testing, right? A lot of times, and I'm actually. I have some hesitation. I don't think that's the right way to go all the time, because there's more in cybersecurity than pen testing, and people, I think, would enjoy that. But the people that are doing that, especially my students, I tell them, listen, this is what happens in a real pen test. Like you are pretty much trying to find a bug in a system and exploit that, so things are going to behave not normal, not the same every time. So you will get frustrated. Things may not work. They may not work exactly how you expect, and that's okay. Take a break. One of the things that I do on a pen test is sometimes I just decide to take a break. I listen to a podcast or some music and just start doing a walk, trying to get my steps in, and kind of go from there. So I think it's important to just take a break and understand that frustration is part of the journey.
Is there any advice you give them in terms of kind of setting up their career?
Yeah. So I would say a lot of times I tell them like kind of build a good foundation on whatever you want to do. And also try and figure out like what would your self in 10 years in the future talk about the decision you made in your career. I had student of mine that he really wanted to go into software development. And and I just sat down with him. I go, listen, this is not the wrong decision, but for me, I see a lot of software development already being outsourced, and in a lot of places where labor is cheap. And how is AI going to change that? Like, let's think about this 10 years in a row. Not saying your decision is wrong, right? It's just the way I'm thinking about it. Yeah. And so I try and tell students, like, when you're thinking about your career, think about like, what do you want to accomplish, not only from a technical and career standpoint, but in your personal life. What is your career going to afford you to do, right? Like, what kind of life do you want to live, right? If you want to enjoy the outdoors and like hike all day, well, that's a good thing. And if you want to, have your own private plane, well, maybe you got to think a little bit different about like where your career trajectory is going to go.
What is your approach to mentoring the next generation of security leaders?
Yeah, and I think this is important because I think a lot of people that are senior in the industry were so tapped for time, and and sometimes it's hard for us to like kind of take a step back. So first of all, I think it's important to actually take that time. Mm-hmm. And what I do is I do. When I mentor people, when I have my mentees, I make sure I do have time for them. And that means usually not taking on a lot of mentees. Sometimes people will reach me on LinkedIn and say like, "Hey, can you help me with this?" I go, "Here's the short answer, but this is kind of where you need to go to." And unfortunately, I probably don't have the time to do that. But I'm here for questions or things like that. So always be approachable. But the ones that I do have time for, I think it's important to actually set aside that time, put it part of your schedule, make it part of your life as well. Saying, "Hey, you took on this responsibility." Mm-hmm. So like live up to what you've taken on.
Any resources, books, podcasts, tools that you use day to day that you think people should know about?
Yeah. So first of all, I love like dark reading and thread post. I also love reading some vendor blogs as well. Like obviously, bias with Fortinet since I work there, but sure. But also, our competitors like Palo Alto, Cisco, Talos has like a really awesome blog. Mm-hmm. I think you can always learn from things. What's nice about like research, like in these companies, like all the sales teams kind of hate each other. They're all competing, right? But in research, we're
all talking about behind the curtain.
Exactly. There are days when probably I talk more to our competitors than I talk to people in my own company, right? And I think that's okay because. I think you shouldn't rely on having information that makes you better. It should be how you stop that information, right? Or stop that attack. Yep. Tell you kind of a tangent, a good story here is that a couple of years ago, and Cisco kind of discovered this tool called VPN filter, and almost no one's really heard of that because I feel like as a community we got together. Cisco, actually, the Talos group shared it out with the Cyber Threat Alliance, and there's a lot of companies out there. Yep. And once they shared it out, companies like Fortinet and McAfee, Palo Alto, they all kind of took the data and found more things about this attack, and were able to collaborate and essentially kind of kill this attack. Kill the command and control server, sinkhole it. It was just a non-event. I truly believe if that didn't happen, it could have been one of the most devastating attacks on U.S. critical infrastructure if it didn't happen. And that was years ago. But it just shows you how sharing information is good.
It's an interesting dichotomy between the front office and the technical side of a lot of these businesses, because right. I mean, it was the same way in networking.
Yeah.
We were fierce competitors from a business perspective, but we'd all go to Nanog and get to know each other because you had to, because, in the event of a security incident, if you're calling somebody at your competitor, you call the front desk and they're not going to know how to help you. You actually need to know someone to talk to.
Right.
But like, it was the same way in the AV industry where, the businesses were competing heavily, and then the engineers in the back were all trading virus samples, and it was a community in the back end to make it all work.
Yeah, the AV industry has always been very strong with that. I'm sure every competitor does this, but when we see an attack, we basically test to see how efficient and effective we are in picking up those attacks and stopping those attacks. But naturally, you're going to test it against your competitors as well, and everyone does this.
Yeah.
But if I see something that we pick up, for example, and our competitors don't, well, first of all, my boss is like, you must have had a false positive. Like, just you need to fix that. Like, I don't believe that. Go check your work, right? And it's the opposite. If I don't pick up something in our competitors too, my boss really isn't happy about that either. So just not happy. But at the same time, like, we share that information out because one of my biggest customers is the U.S. government. guess what? They're all my competitors' biggest customers too. And probably they are.
Yeah.
We're not going to let the community suffer just not having that lack of information. I tell like the sales team, like, how do you stop that information? What are you doing that's unique or advanced about AI or your detection or how fast your signatures are or what your process is? Sell on that. Don't sell on like, oh, I got this piece of paper that no one knows about.
Yeah. Too many secrets.
Yeah.
Is there a key piece of advice you give to young people?
Yeah, I would say, first of all, especially going to cybersecurity, that don't believe everything you hear. Like like for sure, like on how like people say what they do things, what they accomplish. But if it sounds interesting to you, see if you can accomplish that yourself, right? Whether it's an attack or tool or doing something. Also, a lot of people are getting into cybersecurity because, obviously the education markets are exploding. So I think we have numbers. I don't quite believe them, but how many hundreds of thousands of jobs? I mean, sometimes it sounds so ridiculous. Trillions of jobs in cybersecurity available, right?
Well, that's right up there next to trillions of attacks.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, no. You're counting packets there, fella.
Exactly, right? And every one of those jobs like requires like a PhD and 30 years of experience or whatever. Right?
And it only pays 25 grand.
Exactly. So I would say do it for the love of something, right? If you're trying to, if you're watching these shows or hearing people saying they're making a lot of money, like not that they're lying, but they probably have a lot of experience under their belt and they've probably specialized. They've probably made a little. They carved out something for themselves, however they're doing that, right? Understand you need to have that passion. Otherwise, it's not going to be any more lucrative than any other job. And just have that passion.
What is the hardest transition you've made moving up the leadership ladder?
Well, understanding that I don't have to be technical and getting my hands off the keyboard sometimes. And like I said, I haven't completely succeeded there. I need to do a little more balancing work, but I would say that. Also, I think I just had an attitude like if something needs to be done, I just want to get it done, right? I just I see task one needs to be done. I'm just doing task one, and that's not always the best way for your team to learn. And sometimes I was like frustrated, like, well, it just needs to be done. Why aren't they doing like this task one? But you need to understand where they're coming from. Maybe they're afraid. Maybe they've never done that. Maybe they're afraid they're going to be in my situation of the firewall where we take down a company. Yeah. And so you kind of understand and putting them in their shoes. Like they're not trying to get out of work. They just there could be some other reasons behind that. So kind of keeping all that in focus and in mind. And like I said, it's easy. It's easy not to think about that when you're in the deadlines and you're frustrated and you just want to hurry and you just want to literally push the person out of the way, take over and get it done.
Do you see any trends developing in the space that are going to change the way we lead our teams?
I hope so.
Okay.
So I am seeing like people, especially this like generation, like as we have new leaders come into space, I think so all the points that I've talked about, I think there's more of a focus of that, right? There's more of a focus on people and balance, and I don't think that was always the case. It was just like especially like a couple of generations before us, I think it was just like, hey, this person's going to put in this time, like they're going to grind it out, and they're going to grind it out for how many years, and that's it, that's their work, and then they're going to go home. But I think now we're seeing more of an encouragement to balance that work-life balance, but also kind of make a difference in the community, maybe make a difference in the world if they can as well. And I think that's important. So I hope I'm seeing that with my peers, and I'm hoping that is a trend.
That'd be nice. How about AI is in your title? So how does that map into that question?
So I think AI will help us bring time back, but I think it doesn't replace the human element, the empathy part, and we got to be careful about that. We need to keep that in mind. But I think just automating things, giving us time back, bouncing ideas, storing for information, storing for data, right? That definitely helps. Sure. So hopefully the time AI is saving us will give us more time to focus on the human element.
Good plug. Thank you. So when you're hiring for your team, what qualities do you screen for?
A couple of things is like, what position can they actually do the technical work, or can they grow into the technical work? I always tell people I can usually teach them the technical part of it. What I can't teach is attitude or just that motivation. And so I'm just looking for a baseline. It's funny, like one of my team members was kind of joking around because I usually give them like almost like a CTF that they need to complete for a team. And the last two people I hired actually failed on the CTF, and I was interviewing people that actually passed the CTF, and I told them, like, it's not just about the CTF. It's like, yeah, I want to test your technical skills, but I'm not looking for the right answer. I'm looking for how you're getting that answer, what you're doing. And I could tell these people were the ones that I hired, my team members. They were motivated, they were excited, like they didn't give up. They kept on pounding on it until like the time was up. And then they performed all the other parts of the interview really well. Like I wanted to work with them. I'm like, hey, this is a cool person. I feel like I could get along with this person.
Yeah.
I still remember when I first started off, like in networking, I was working for a company, and it was a really large company, and they had this. I'll just say his name was Ben. I'm not giving it away, but Ben was like a triple CCIE, and they said Ben is amazing. He's the smartest person we know. Please never have him come here again. He's the most awful, has an attitude. We don't care how much he knows. We can't work with him, right? And at that point, like I think I was just a CCNP or something, and they're like, hey, we like this guy. Like he knows stuff technically. Yeah, he may not have as much experience as Ben, but we know he's not going to let us down. But more importantly, he's not putting us down every time. Like we like working with him, and I think that's important. And that's kind of the qualities I look for: is who do I want to be around? Do they have that attitude? Do they have that motivation? And are they just excited to be in the industry?
That gets lost a lot, like the bedside manner aspect of things, especially in security.
Yeah.
How do you approach that?
Yeah, it's tough because a lot of people that do lose it, like, don't want to be called out on it. They don't want to hear about it.
You're going in on their worst day.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I always give people like a second and probably a third chance as well, just to see what what's it about. Like if someone I see is behaving badly and I'm giving them a second chance, and I'm probably more involved. I kind of try and lead by example a lot of times, just to see if they are having a bad day, or if they can pick up like, hey, how to do this. If it does require a talk, I will. But a lot of times, unfortunately, and probably need better management skills on this, kind of start weeding them out and looking for better people. Luckily, I haven't had that yet. Usually, most of the time, it's just been a bad day or something.
How about from like a dealing with a customer perspective, like the bedside manner? You're mentioning the triple CCIE was a pain in the butt to deal with, versus you as a more less experienced individual, but easier to work with. I would assume that same function applies in cybersecurity.
Yes.
When you're going in on an incident or something, and all the alarm bells are going off. And
absolutely, sometimes it's in cybersecurity from a customer standpoint, it can be a little more difficult, just because like you're essentially calling their baby bad or whatever their organization is doing. You're figuring out finding vulnerabilities, and they don't want to know about that. So it does take a little more finessing, I would say, but it's at the end of the day, they know what you're here for, right? And I kind of make that really clear. I go, hey, you know what, we found like these really big gaps, and we were able to exploit systems. We were able to like kind of own you, but that's okay. Like you're not doing anything worse than anyone else, right? This is where you made a mistake. Let's help you get better.
Yeah, the realization that nobody's perfect.
Exactly.
We are all dealing with
a
constant onslaught of attacks.
Exactly.
It's about incremental improvement.
Exactly. And I think with enough experience, a lot of times I can even like tell them like, hey, I know why you did this. You did this because of this and this. And they're like, yeah, that's right. I go, I get it. I get exactly what you were doing. Hey, you didn't have to compromise, and this is how I would have done it. And this may work for you, right? At the end of the day, it's also important to understand. I'm never going to understand their business as well as they do, and all the gotchas that they have. No matter how much time I spend with them, unless I'm completely embedded and like basically part of their organization, and that's okay too. Like I understand like, this is how I would fix things, and I understand this may not work for you. If it doesn't, let me know. Let's figure out something else together.
Unfortunately, that's all the time we've got for today. Before we wrap it up, if people want to follow along with your work, where can they go?
Really, I'm very Googleable, I would say. Just Google my name, but I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on X. I'm pretty much those are the two major social media platforms that people reach out to me on. And then I have a blog. I have a personal blog. The name's kind of funny. I didn't give me this name, but you just got to own it so it's Dr. Chaos, DrChaos, like how you'd really spell it, .com. And just my personal blog, and you can contact me there. What I try and do on that blog is just look at the things that I find interesting and like talk about that.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Aamir, thank you.
Thank you again.